Hey, how's it going?
Good.
Where's Pat?
Okay.
She's online.
It's 7:04 PM, and I'm calling the March 9th, 2026 Hamilton Planning Board meeting to order. First order of business is roll call, especially since we have some people who are appearing via Zoom. So when I call your name, would you please indicate that you're present? Pat Norton,
Present?
Jonathan Poor,
Jonathan Poor, present.
Emil Dahlquist,
Emil Dahlquist, present.
Darcy Dale,
Darcy Dale, present.
Beth Herr,
Present.
Matt Hamill is not here, Jeff Austin,
Jeff Austin, present.
Marnie Crouch present, and we'll hope to see Bill Wheaton shortly. So I note for the benefit of the public that this meeting is being recorded. So the first item on our agenda is approval of minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from February 24th?
I have a couple comments before we make a motion.
Yes.
Okay.
I was going to have the motion
And then-
and a second and then a discussion.
Okay, great.
So
Let's do that.
I move that we approve the minutes from from February 24th, 2026.
do I have a second?
Second?
Any discussion?
Yes.
Okay.
So, under Board of Health discussion, it says, is proposing an amendment? And
Oh,
I-
yes, I fixed that.
Okay, great. 'Cause maybe I was absent, you know, I thought it was voted through.
No, I picked up on that.
Okay,
I changed it, further amendment,
okay.
and noted that it was recently amended. So
Okay.
I have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 edits to the minutes.
Okay,
So,
so my second edit would be, it talks about nitrogen systems, and it should just say nitrogen-sensitive systems.
nitrogen, what system?
Sensitive systems.
Okay, could you tell me where that is?
That is the last, or second to last sentence under Board of Health discussion. Second to last paragraph.
Nitrogen-sensitive systems, okay. And Darcy, you emailed me with a typo,
Yep.
and I picked that up as well. So,
So were most of your corrections sort of form and grammar? and-
yes.
Okay, not content.
Form and grammar, but I picked up the problem that you found with the reference to amending the GPOD and whatnot. So,
Marty, can I make a comment on it?
absolutely.
On the minutes? I did not attend the meeting, as you noted on the top, but the last paragraph before the vote, there was Util Associates sent in a proposal for town center zoning. The board discussed when they would like to meet with Util and move forward with public-facing documents.
Right. I changed that to move, to meet with Util, discussed, the board
We have a
discussed
hacker on the, yeah,
when they
thank
would
you.
like to meet with Util and the contents of the proposal.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah. Oh, and the other problem with the minutes was that we met at the Council on Aging, not at the library, so I picked that up as well. That's the first paragraph. So, Mark, I'll hand you
So
these.
in the noise and chaos, could you just repeat what Emil's correction was? Was it not public-facing, but something else?
Oh. Emil, do you want to repeat your?
Could you just repeat what that correction was?
I changed the last sentence to read, "The board discussed when they would like to meet with Util and the contents of the proposal."
That's better, but Emil, what were you going to say?
What were you going to say, Emil?
No, that was it. I just didn't know what public-facing documents
Yeah, that's misleading. It was misleading.
referred to.
Well,
Yeah.
Yes,
it's
thank you for that.
jargon or something.
Yeah,
I don't
thanks.
know what a public-facing document is, to tell you the truth. So anyhow, that's for Mark. So we can do a roll call vote on the approval of the minutes, subject to those edits. So When I call your name, would you please indicate your assent? Pat Norton,
Pat Norton, aye.
Jonathan Poor,
Jonathan Poor, aye.
Emil Dahlquist,
Emil Dahlquist, aye.
Darcy Dale,
Darcy Dale, aye.
Beth Herr,
Aye.
and Marnie Crouch, aye. Okay. So, the next item on our agenda is a pre-application review for a communications tower. And so, do we have someone here representing the applicant, EIP Communications One LLC?
Yes. Good evening. My name is Brian Grossman. I'm an attorney at Strang, Scott and Giroux. We represent the applicant, EIP Communications One LLC, generally known as Everest Infrastructure Partners, or Everest.
Pardon me, I didn't hear that.
Everest Infrastructure Partners, or just Everest?
Okay, so I had some questions there.
Sure.
Just me. So I know we were provided with the lease, okay? And I'm going to try and find that. So the original lease was with Varsity Wireless LLC.
Yes.
And so Dr. Google informed me that Varsity Wireless LLC was acquired by Everest Partners.
That is correct.
That's correct. So could you, just for the record, inform us how Everest Partners, which was identified by William Olson, chair of the select board, in a letter to me, he identified Everest Infrastructure Partners as the entity that we would be dealing with, but what is the relationship of Everest Infrastructure Partners to EIP Communications One LLC?
This may or may not come as a surprise, but the EIP part of EIP Communications stands for Everest, is a short for Everest Infrastructure Partners. So they are related corporate entities.
Related corporate entities?
Yes, so the ultimate, I'm trying to think how they did this. When Varsity was acquired, it generally assigned its holdings to EIP Communications One, which is under the Everest umbrella.
Okay. And so do they share common management and common ownership?
Well, Varsity was merged into and acquired by Everest. They kept some of the Varsity Wireless personnel. Christopher Davis, who was the president and CEO of Varsity Wireless, is now, his title's changed a couple times. I think he's now president of United States Development for Everest.
Right, but I was talking about Everest Infrastructure Partners and then EIP Communications One LLC.
EIP Communications is an Everest entity. If the concern is, do you have the right entity in front of you that holds the lease currently, the answer is yes.
That's EIP,
Communications One.
you hold the lease. It holds.
Correct.
It holds the lease.
Correct. It was
And I
assigned the
know-
lease as part of the acquisition.
Yeah, I'm only being technical because,
It matters.
you know, it matters. But, you know, in the event that abutters raise any issues, we want to know who we're dealing with.
Yep.
And the relationship here, because if you looked at the lease and you looked at the letter from the chairman of the select board and the application, you have 3 different names. So now we have an understanding of that relationship. And you might note that I'm a retired lawyer, so, sorry.
No, that's fair. I mean, as you know, often, the corporate, the actual corporate name on file with the Secretary of State or whatever is, there's just like the general business name, right? Like everybody refers to Starbucks.
Right.
Starbucks isn't on file with either it's Washington or Delaware as Starbucks. It's Starbucks something.
Right. Okay, so we're good. So anyhow, with that aside, I think it's important that you give us a sense of what's being proposed here. And, I profess ignorance. I mean, I have no idea what this is going to look like. There's nothing that I have seen that I can compare it to. The only cell tower that I'm aware of is off of Asbury Street, where Habitat for Humanity is building some houses, and that, I looked at that a long time ago. So, yeah, I think that there's some education that needs to be done for the board.
Sure.
There's also another tower in back of the public safety building.
Or the town hall.
No, the public safety building had a police, some kind of tower, because I could see it from my house.
Oh, really?
So I don't know if this is in lieu of that or in addition to.
Right,
The
right.
police radio, police band maybe?
What's,
There's a site behind the DPW, which is actually also owned by Everest.
oh, okay.
The one, yes, there's a lattice tower that is a municipal tower that is at the property that is the subject of, that will be the subject of the application. But that's a different style tower.
Will that remain after this, or is this in lieu of?
Based on our discussions, it'll be in lieu of. We will, part of the proposal is to relocate the existing antennas, and if additional antennas need to be located on the proposed site, to locate those at the top.
How tall is the lattice tower right now?
I don't know. It is shorter than 110 feet. I think it's 80 or 85 feet.
Okay.
But that's just, I've been to the site and I've seen the tower. That is my estimate. That's not based on a measurement that I'm aware of.
That gives us an idea. You can estimate from that.
And maybe I'm premature then. What's the driving force of replacing the antenna?
Couple things. One, the existing height isn't sufficient to accommodate the multiple wireless communications carriers, and also to provide the coverage that's necessary. So increasing the height would make sense. By increasing the height, one of the things that will happen is if, I think it's sheet 5 on that file, Mr. Connors, might have the elevation on it. So the municipal antennas will go at the top, extend above the 110-foot proposed tower. So that'll give them some additional height, which should help with some additional range for them. All the wireless communications carriers will be located below that. So it will provide for additional municipal communications. It will provide for Verizon, who is Everest's anchor tenant. And then it'll provide for co-location opportunities. It might have been page 6, Mark. I might be wrong on that. Additional co-location opportunities as well. Obviously, if you're going to build the site, you don't want to build it just so that one wireless communications carrier can use it. You want to make sure it's available for co-location. It's part of the ordinance as well. So Everest is proposing it to accommodate Verizon, 2 additional co-locators as well, for a total of 3, plus municipal.
The municipal would be the police and fire, is that right?
Correct.
Yep, okay.
It certainly is police and fire. I wouldn't say it is necessarily limited to police and fire.
Might be DPW as well.
I had a question. I was looking over some of the documents, and I'm seeing heights that vary from 109 feet plus minus to 160 feet.
It's a good catch.
Clarify?
Well, could I just add to that, though? So I had noted, top of the tower, 159.5.
Let me explain, because it's her question. Her question answers that question. So there are 2. There's a reason you're seeing 169. If you look just to the right of it, you'll see AMSL. Okay, that's above mean sea level. So that's not from the ground at which the location, the site is placed. That's measured off of above mean sea level. So if you look, the other height that is shown, the 110 feet that goes to the top of the tower, not the top of the municipal antennas, but the top of the tower itself, you'll see AGL, which is above ground level. So that's where they're taking the height at the site, going up 110 feet, and that's the top of the tower. You'll see another note that may confuse you. I think it says the height of the tower is 109 feet,
Yep.
but it accounts for it goes on a concrete pad that's not flush with the ground, but we don't get credit for that concrete pad. So when you measure from the correct place, ground, all the way to the top of the tower that's sitting on that concrete pad, 110 feet, which is the maximum permitted under the bylaw without the waiver.
Okay, that's, yeah.
But very good catch, very good catch. And if you look fast and you don't know what you're reading, or sometimes even if you do, you can screw that up.
Well, I had never heard of AMSL before. Why would I?
I mean, I've been doing this a very long time. My understanding is that when the RF engineers are looking at it, because of how they deal with their software, that is a piece of information they require.
Right, no, I get.
So they put it on the plan.
I understand it, but it's not something that I think any of us are familiar with, so.
No, and it absolutely can cause confusion. I absolutely get the question.
Looking at it on our screen, I had to zoom in, so I mean, it was pretty hard to.
In terms of the location, we met on site with multiple representatives from the municipality, police, fire, I think DPW and engineering were present. Mr. Connors was present. If I remember right, a member of the Board of Selectmen was present. And we walked the site together to do a couple things. One, understanding that one of the setbacks required under the zoning ordinance is a 200-foot setback to any existing structure not located on the property. So the police fire station doesn't count. So we wanted to make sure that we located in accordance with that, but also for obvious reasons, given that it is first and foremost the property that houses public safety systems and municipal fire department and police department, not interfere with their operations. So we were on site for about an hour or so, looked at a couple different spots. This one made the most sense for a number of reasons. Police and fire were happy with it. It minimized any sort of interference with their operations. Part of the proposed compound is located where there's currently existing pavement. The other part of the proposed compound is located where there's currently already landscaped lawn. And so in terms of removal of overall vegetation, extraordinarily limited. You're really dealing with previously developed area. The site itself, in terms of the compound, will be fenced by a wooden stockade fence that will further limit visibility into the compound. It's a nicer fence than something like chain link.
Will it be landscape?
There isn't really any landscaping around it. I mean, it's already back there right now is the parking lot. And so putting additional landscaping in front of it, between it and the police and fire station would interfere with the gates. And putting landscaping kind of otherwise around it doesn't accomplish much from a aesthetic perspective, especially with that stockade fencing and the setback distances and the existing vegetation that won't be disturbed because of the location. I don't think I need to tell anyone the need for the facility. I have a few friends who live in the area, including some that actually live in Hamilton, that told me to make sure that you knew there was a coverage gap and the residents here knew there was a coverage gap. It will obviously fill some of the need between the existing DPW site, as I said, also owned by Everest, and at least for Verizon has a site further south in Wenham in a church steeple. And so this kind of sits somewhat in the middle of that, will help fill in, certainly along 1A, help fill in on the commuter rail station as well, and provide coverage. So
It wouldn't extend as far as Highland Street, would it? Because there's a huge gap in coverage on Highland Street.
Probably not.
Probably not.
Probably not.
probably not, but let's see if I
Have you ever noticed that on Highland?
I have a couple of questions. I live over there. There's nothing.
It reaches towards Highland, but it gets close. And it may not perfectly solve it, but it may improve it based on the radio frequency propagation maps.
Yeah, because calls generally drop somewhere around Winthrop Street and Waldingfeld.
Yeah, but, so based on the propagation maps, which obviously we'll submit with the complete application, it does reach towards there, and so may provide some additional benefit there.
So I have a quick question on drawing A2. It shows the enclosure being adjacent to a stormwater infiltration area. And it's a little unclear exactly what the topography does in there, but it looks as though a lot of the pavement kind of aims its drainage water into that infiltration area. And that enclosure's sort of right, looks like where it feeds into it. So I'm just curious if there's any change of grades or
It's
runoff patterns.
really flat right there.
Okay.
The compound, right now you have basically half impervious surface, half lawn. The compound, other than the concrete pads for the equipment and the foundation, is covered in crushed stone. So typically it'll infiltrate right there. There
And it just
shouldn't be any
follows
sort of change to drainage
And
in
it
that area.
follows the contours that are there? No
Yeah.
change in contours?
A couple
And
questions.
the design was reviewed by the municipality before we got to this point, so.
Does, question on the height of it again, does that trigger a particular kind of lighting that you would have at the top of the monopole? Are you required to have lights on the top?
No, they've run the FAA, and there's a determination of no hazard to air navigation without the requirement for marking or lighting.
Okay. Another question, and maybe it's on the drawing somewhere, but these are kind of small drawings. The finish on the pole and the color, can you tell us what that is?
Sure, it's a hot dipped galvanized steel gray, so it's non-reflective, and then it weathers to even be more non-reflective. We find that
Okay.
in New England tends to be the best finish.
Right.
I had a couple, Emil, are you done with your questions?
Yeah, go ahead.
By the way, we've lost the screen on it.
Yeah,
Working on it.
terrorist hacking. It looks like you're disturbing just over 2,200 square foot, probably more when you do the cuts and everything else. I guess the stormwater, probably, maybe there's some stormwater concerns giving the close proximity to the leaching field and everything else that they have there on that property. I don't know if anything there has been addressed. It's considered to be a large tower, given that it's above 100 feet, and thus,
Actually, really short for the industry.
but I mean, I guess from terms of permitting, so you have to comply with Mass Code 974 CMR 100, and I think it's also a 2-mile radius requirement from any other large tower, which the town hall, the unit behind the town hall is only 1.2 miles away currently. So unless you deconstruct that prior to reconstructing this, I don't know if there's any considerations there for your proximity to already what is considered to be a large tower. And have you met all the requirements of the state code?
Well, I'll say this.
Setbacks and everything
Where, don't get me wrong. I reviewed the ordinance again before I came here, but
Yep.
I review a bunch in a week.
Yep.
I don't remember a 2-mile separation requirement in the zoning ordinance.
Should be a 2-mile separation requirement from any other large tower structure.
Where? Is that in the zoning ordinance, or are you getting that from the building code? Because it's certainly not going to be in the building code.
Not in building code.
And there's no
Maybe I can look for that and get
there's
back
no
to you.
there's no CMR that I'm aware of under a state regulation that requires that.
But there are, so like, I know that you need 2,500 square feet of land, for instance, associated with a large tower above 100 feet.
Where are you
That's
getting
in
that
the
from?
CMR requirements for the state of Massachusetts. Refer to the CMR that I'm, the CMR I'm referencing has these requirements in it. Another concern would be with the backup power system that you'd be providing to support the structure, the size of it, the diesel storage requirements for it, unless if it's natural gas, and then the noise that it creates when being tested every week, how that emissions is exhausted. It's right next to a elementary school. There's a lot of concerns that a large tower and the support infrastructure may raise in that sensitive location.
I mean, in terms of backup power, the primary backup power is battery. If Verizon decides that it needs a generator, it will have to deal with that. We're not proposing one for them, so that would be something they would have to deal with later. Otherwise, it would be battery backup. So,
Well, what are all these footprints adjacent to the, I'm assuming the footprints provided that are adjacent to the tower are related to backup power.
no, they're showing as future reserve for otherwise communications providers. And we're providing for co-location, so there needs to be both tower space and ground space.
You might want to confirm that they're doing battery power, because I was under the impression that a large cell phone tower system requires a emergency power backup system,
Yeah, battery is a sufficient
but not for
Backup
long
system.
enough. A battery system may not be, I think I would, there's no description of what that system is in the application. It'd be good to get additional detail what it is.
not to be argumentative, it's a pre-application conference. We haven't given you we didn't give you a full, complete package. So there are other things, like, you don't have the RF report in front of you. So
Yeah.
I'll
Maybe that would be a
certainly,
nice
I'll
thing
certainly
to-
take, I'll certainly take it back. But as I said, for all carriers that I'm aware of, and I've been doing this for a very long time, primary is always battery backup. Whether or not a generator is on site is a separate call. There always can be a portable generator if a power outage goes long enough. They do have portable generators that carriers can roll out to a site on a temporary basis. Some carriers will choose to request and seek permitting for a permanently installed generator.
Well, you're absolutely right. This is a pre-application. So maybe there's like some follow-up confirming questions related to backup power, related to the state code requirements
Right.
and the setbacks and the square foot area that the space is supposed to allow for a tower. It is a tight site. I know that area very, very well. The space adjacent to it is a little wooded area that kids have ripped around a little track on their bikes. So it is a very tight site back there, even though there's obviously a parking lot for land. But I don't know it's sufficient to support a tower of this size, given some of the requirements that are set forth in the state code.
If we can just, since this is a pre-application conference, and I mentioned this to Mark in an email, just for example, in section 7.2.4.2, an applicant has to demonstrate that the tower and facility comply with all applicable standards of the federal and state governments, including but not limited to radio frequency emissions, air navigation safety, and environmental impact. And there are all sorts of other technical provisions in section 7.2. So the bottom line is that the planning board is going to need to engage, well, at the expense of the applicant, a peer reviewer who can provide us with the guidance that we need to go through all the kinds of questions that you're raising right here, that we don't run into any obstacles down the road.
And I'm speaking also from experience from a application that was submitted in the town of Ipswich at the Massachusetts, like, I don't know what they call it there, the transportation. Yeah.
I did it.
Oh, you did it, okay. So there was a 2-mile radius requirement in that application.
No, so
They were
that's
just
where you're
beyond
wrong.
the-
There, I believe there is, but that's in their zoning bylaw, if I remember
That's in
correctly.
the Ipswich town zoning bylaw.
Yes, it is not part of,
Hamilton
it's not
doesn't
part
have
of a
the same-
no, you don't. And it's not part of a CMR. They said
It is close, like we have a tower in the town, we have in the town hall, and this is a mile away for another tower. So there should be like a contingency, something to.
But you
remove
demonstrably still have a significant gap in coverage in this area. So what that tells
Yeah,
you
but
is
we
that
just don't wanna
existing,
pop towers around everywhere.
but there's no
Every
other,
mile, we have a tower in town.
but there's no other way to resolve this significant
No,
gap.
I understand what you're saying, but
And that's why things like, and
that was also a sensitive area in Ipswich, and it was, that it does get I'm preparing the board for a contentious
Right,
review when it comes to fruition.
right.
Because it is a sensitive area. You're right next to, look at the baseball field that's right there. You're right next to an elementary school. You're right next to a residential area. It's a tight site.
Right.
It's not in a field along a highway that nobody
Right.
cares about.
Right.
There's gonna be people that show up,
I understand.
have ducks
that.
in a row to prepare for it.
Well, and I think that's, to your point, I mean, moving forward, and I can't prejudge, anything because we don't have an application, but we do need a peer reviewer who can evaluate the application and answer the questions, not just to the planning board, but the abutters to this site. And everyone has to be satisfied that the application complies with all the provisions of section 7.2. And if it doesn't, we wouldn't be in a position to grant a special permit. So would you agree with that assessment? I mean, there are very stringent requirements in section 7.2, and some are very technical and others are not. But in our evaluation of this, we have to be satisfied that the technical aspects of it, which I personally would not be in a position to judge. I'm not an engineer. I have no experience in these things. I would have to rely on the expertise of a peer reviewer to make sure that what you provide us is what is suitable for consideration for a special permit.
Yeah. You should
Does
be
anyone
prepared
else have anything to add to that? Thank you.
I mean, if there's going to be a peer review, if you want to try and reach out to someone earlier and get them engaged earlier, we're happy to get them the information prior to the first hearing, so we don't get to the first hearing and everybody says, well, we didn't do anything, we need the peer review. So if that's a path you want to go down, I would encourage you to let's do that. And let's find out who it's going to be, get them engaged, and we can get them going from right off the bat rather than waste one hearing saying, well, we're not going to do much because we don't have a peer review.
Right. So that's why I brought it up, because when I started reading some of these provisions, I realized that, that the planning board might not have sufficient expertise to go through the technical aspects of your application.
That's fair. Some feel that they do, some feel that they don't. So.
Well, we're losing one of our experts
I
right
know.
over there. He chose
Who are we losing?
to run for reelection.
The chief, the resident chief complainer.
Well, he has an
May work in your
engineering,
benefit.
he has an engineering background, so he's been invaluable on some of these more technical aspects.
Okay, I mean, in general, having engineers and those kinds of folks on boards are really helpful at times. So, I'm happy to take any more questions you have. The one thing I don't want to lose track of is I know the one question we had, pardon me, one of the reasons we wanted to make sure we had the pre-application conference is under one of the provisions, 7.2.5 has to do with the on-site demonstration. I know, and I think most.
With the balloon?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the way it reads, it says it has to be over 3 days, and you could read that a couple different ways. One is means you have to do it just on 3 consecutive days within a time we all agree on. The other would be you need to do it for 24 hours, 3 days a week, which with a balloon you really can't do. The balloon can be unattended for a short period of time, for limited periods of time, but if you were gonna have a balloon on site for 24 hours, you'd have to have someone there effectively 24 hours. And I'm not sure there's a whole lot of value at a balloon test at 2 or 3 in the morning. The way this same provision existed when the DPW site was done by then Varsity, now Everest. The way they did it was they actually did it on a Friday and a Saturday, 2 days, from 9 to noon, with a contingency for weather, which meant if it's too windy or whatever, that until they got their 2 days in, they would just continue to do it. So if Friday was bad and they did it Saturday, they would do it Sunday. If Friday and Saturday were bad, they would do it Sunday and Monday. And so that's what we would propose as well. Also, when you get further into the day and it gets later, when you get really even towards noon is a little late, it tends to get windier as the day gets longer or as the day gets later. And that really ultimately ends up with the balloon test not being as effective. So we find doing it over limited hours in a specific time makes a lot of sense. The other thing I want to make sure I mentioned, that I did mention to Mr. Connors, is the folks that we have do the balloon test for us and take pictures and do the photo simulations based off of those are professionals with years of experience. So they look at a map ahead of time, they make a determination in their reasonable judgment where they think they should at least initially get some pictures from of the test. Based on their experience as they drive around looking, they may take other pictures. And I think they do generally a pretty good job. However, there may be places of specific concern that we are not aware of that you definitely want a picture from, whether that's a corner of an intersection, whether it's from a specific location like the library, whether that's somewhere else, a specific spot in a park or a specific park, have you. We want to make sure we get those. And so whether, you tell me tonight, whether you filter those to Mr. Connors prior to the balloon test, if there are those types of locations where, look, you say to yourselves, we absolutely want to see what it looks like from this spot. And the answer maybe it's not visible at all, which would be good. You just let us know. We'll make sure we direct our vendor to go ahead and make sure they get a picture from that spot.
Well, these dates be publicized?
Yes, so the way 7.2.5 works is, and the reason I can't just propose specific dates now, is it's keyed off of when the first public hearing is. So I think it has to be between the first notice of the public hearing and the public hearing. And so ultimately what I think would be helpful for us is to say, okay, what we're going to do is the Friday and Saturday, a Friday and a Saturday, or a Saturday and a Sunday, or what specific weekdays we'd prefer, between these times. And then once we have the exact filing date, we work with Mr. Connors on when the hearing's going to be, we can then say, okay, these are going to be the dates that we'll target for the balloon test. That gets a separate public notice in the paper, and I believe to the abutters. So we draft that. I know there was a sample notice included in the prior application. We would do that again. That would get published, get sent out. Everybody would know it, well in advance. And then the balloon test would occur before the first public hearing.
So would there be any, you said the experts usually know where to take the photos from. Do they give you a short list of where they would normally take the photos from? Like, if I were to just do it intuitively, I would say from large open spaces. So Patton Park, the high school fields, that kind of thing. Because that's where you have the longest sight line on open space.
It varies based on location, right? Like
Yep.
everything's somewhat site specific.
Sure,
So
yeah.
they'll look at the map, and they have software and things that they use to model visibility and things like that.
Right.
And so they kind of make that determination. I don't necessarily get a list from them.
I see.
As I said,
I would say a common sense, analysis there would be open space at more or less the same level or higher.
Yeah, look, I can't guarantee this would be the locations, but certainly just having been to the site and seeing the overview, I would expect the vendor would look at the overview and go, you know what, a picture from the park across Bay Road
Sure.
makes a ton of sense. They're going to take a picture from there. I almost guarantee it, even if I didn't tell them to do it.
Right.
Maybe they take a picture from the ball field from the school that Mr. Norton mentioned. Certainly there, to your point, to the rear and to the, I'm going to lose my direction, but I believe it's south, because if you're standing looking towards Bay Road with the station in front of you, off to your left is the other residential area that's not straight behind. They're going to take pictures from back there somewhere from some of those roads. So as you get further out, that starts to become a little bit more discretionary based on what they're seeing, based on what the modeling's telling them. And like I said, sometimes there's just a site or something that's fairly far away that the modeling may even tell them isn't even close to visible. But somebody says, look, I'm going to pick on you because I can see your nameplate. The Dale House, that's 3.5 miles away, is an extremely impressive historical site. We just want to know what it looks like from there. We get it probably, you can't probably see it, but we just want a picture to show it.
Sure. Well, one thing you might consider is one of the highest points around is in Hamilton, which is Gordon Conwell Theological Seminary. But most of the view in that direction is blocked by trees. The views are more to the north and east, maybe. But they might want to look at that because it is the highest point around.
Okay.
And it's an important destination.
Right. And maybe from the town hall, because that's in the historic district.
Yep. So just to respond to what you were saying, let's talk about it in
So-
advance, not wait till we do it and
Sometimes there's a map with a dot and an arrow, you know what I mean? The perspective you're giving.
Well, what they do is they generate that for us after they take the pictures. They'll give us a key,
Yep.
and they'll give you the map that shows where they took the pictures from. The vendor these guys Everest usually color codes that map. So they'll give you a color if they took the picture but it wasn't visible from that location. You can look on the map, and by color you can see that, okay, if I go to picture 14, I'm going to see it. I'm not going to see the tower from there. If I go to picture 13, that color's different, and that indicates it was visible from this location. And so I go to that and look at it.
Maybe instead
They're really
of,
good.
Maybe a proposed perspective before the photos as opposed to the after the photos perspective.
That you guys can agree.
Sorry, say that again?
because of the right- get what they're proposing to do before taking the photos, and then you can react to that proposal. before-
Again, it's more helpful if you tell us if there's a specific spot where you want a picture from, let us know. Otherwise, at some point, we can only do this so many times, and you can't meet and confer. I guess you could meet and confer about it in an open meeting, but just to go over a list of pictures is somewhat difficult. Typically, you guys know the sensitive spots.
Yeah.
That's why I mentioned Gordon Conwell.
Yeah.
It might be counterintuitive because it's a ways away.
Yeah.
Visibility, so the visibility map's not necessarily like a rendering, like a graphical, like a.
No, we will do photo sims.
You will do a graphical, like a realistic rendering
Yeah.
from some locations too, not just a photo from.
Yeah, so typically what they do is they use the balloon. So typically what you do is you use the balloon, obviously, as the reference point. And then if it's visible, they will they'll, using their modeling, put in an appropriately scaled and sized tower for what's being proposed. So in this case, we have municipal that are not really technically part of our proposal, but overall, we know they're going to be on there, so those would be incorporated. So this will look like the thing that's being proposed as opposed to some generic tower that's not what's being proposed. So it'll, right height, right scale, right width, right number of antennas, all of that will be shown.
I think one thing that would be useful would be to know where along the major corridors do you first see the tower? Along Bay Road from the east, from the west, and in Asbury. I think you want something from a distance and then a few up close to the building or in the downtown area, or Patton Park. But I think knowing when you're actually going to first see it becomes important, even if you just mark it on a map, and so we have some idea of what that area might be where it first comes into view.
That's right, Emil. So when I mentioned, like the historic district, that would be the north. When do you first see it?
Yeah, north to
When you're
south, yeah.
proceeding south on Bay Road, when do you first see it? When you're proceeding north on Bay Road, is it somewhere in Wenham, or is it, in the town center? And then similarly along Asbury, and probably from the abutting neighborhoods to the
Yeah.
east.
The other
I
piece
think
that,
from. Sorry, Jonathan.
the other piece that's often useful is in its immediate surrounds, just understanding the general tree cover in that area. Like if it's tall evergreens like white pines, it tends to hide something like that. If it's deciduous trees in the winter and it's pretty naked, then it's more visible. And I can't remember what the trees are like in that little hillock behind the public safety building. I think it's mostly deciduous back there.
There's not a lot of 100-foot pine trees.
So,
I don't remember. Because we were out there in the summer, it was green. I will tell you, our intent is to file relatively soon, so the photo sims will also be done relatively soon.
good.
Myopia would be an interesting place. The clubhouse on the hill. I mean,
Yeah.
from the polo field, I imagine you'll be able to see this
Yeah,
structure.
Oh, yeah.
Certainly from the clubhouse, which is a bit higher.
yeah.
Imagine those folks might be
So
interested.
I'm struggling here because I get the height, but how wide is this thing? I mean, is it really substantial in size at the base? And then it, there's a tower that's relatively thin, extending 110 feet plus or minus.
I haven't seen the tower design for this. In general, they can be roughly 36 inches to 48 inches at the base, to tapering to like 2 feet at the top.
It looks
It
like
might be a little bit more.
It looks like the radius of the antenna, or the diameter of the antenna, is somewhere around 8 or 10 feet.
Yeah, each platform is about 10 feet
So
on the triangle.
this is what they look like, okay.
So in other words, the thing at the top is about 8 or 10 feet in diameter.
Yeah, typically the platform's roughly 10 feet on each side
Right.
of the triangle.
Okay.
And that's what you're really looking at, not just the stick.
Yeah.
It's a monopole, so it's just one pole.
Right.
It's not like a.
It's not lattice style, which is what is at the DPW, or not DPW, the police station now.
I see.
Right.
Lattice is the one that has like the 3 or 4 legs, and you see like the kind of interlocking cross bracing that goes all the way up.
Right. Well, thank you for that. That's helpful.
And then importantly, there's no guy wires either, so there'll be no
Right.
long wires that run off to a guy anchor somewhere. It's all self-supported by that foundation.
Right.
Just out of curiosity, just for my own benefit, what are these towers usually rated for wind resistance?
That is a good question. It is based on the standard that is prescribed by the code, and that is specific to each region. And I think it's even specific by county. So there is a specific rated wind speed that they're required to be able to withstand, and that includes like things like ice loading as well.
Yep.
I don't know what that wind speed is off the top of my head for
Yep.
Hamilton.
Yeah.
But it's, it's,
And I would
if
assume
we've seen
they-
hurricane, I mean, based on what we've seen in terms of hurricanes of, well over 100 miles an hour, it's certainly above that.
Yeah, and generally the code tries to stay ahead of aberrant,
Yeah.
weather changes, so there's usually a factor of safety in that, so I would assume the code would have
Yeah, I mean, and
anticipated a little, what we're heading into generally with climate change is more aberrant.
And there's
aberrant
insurance
winds,
in the
so-
event anything untoward happened and the tower fell on the public safety building's roof. I mean, I'm sure there's insurance that will,
they absolutely carry insurance.
in case that wind is
And
stronger
the good
than
thing is the setbacks,
thought.
the good thing with the setbacks is the only thing that's in danger is the public safety building.
Anybody else have any more questions? So I think that as a practical matter, you're going to have to coordinate with Mark Connors with respect to the balloon test. Would you agree? I mean, there's no way that this board can actually get involved because Mark is responsible for the public notice and so that the mechanics of getting that squared away are going to fall on him, and that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
You can coordinate
Yeah.
better.
In terms of the specific dates, certainly, are we comfortable with the 2 days, 9 to noon?
Well, the bylaw actually says 3 consecutive days, but then the applicant can propose an alternative. So I think the important thing is to do the balloon test and get the pictures, because I think the pictures are what people are probably going to rely on. The abutters are probably the ones who are going to be actually looking at the balloon itself, but the public will probably be relying on the pictures. Does that sound
It's
right?
good to cover a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. A lot of people will leave on a Friday and come back on a Sunday, so you may miss the window of opportunity for doing over 2 days. So it would be nice to do it. If you do a Friday, Saturday, Sunday,
Sunday.
capture the,
At the
But
time
9
she
to 12?
suggested. And that's a little bit more in keeping what the
I
bylaw
would do it-
actually says.
Gets your early risers and your later risers.
12 o'clock in the afternoon, though. I mean, the sun's going down. It's nice to see a perspective of a different time of day, too. Like a 9 to 12, you're covering, the sun comes up over on the far end of where you'd see, sun goes down in front of this thing over at Patton Park, and that's when you're going to see it most. You know what I mean? If the sun's over on this side, on the east side, it's in the
So
wrong
are you
location for where you're going to see
suggesting
the thing
Like
most
9 to 3?
primarily.
Are you suggesting 9 to 3 or something like that?
I'm saying, yeah, at least capture some part of the afternoon, and
Yeah.
weather dependent, you change days, whatever else, but it's not gonna change that drastically around here between noon and 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So I was thinking 9 to 5. 9 to 5, you capture the whole perspective of where the sun's coming at that point.
Again, we have to have someone out there for that long too. So if we're going to do 9 to 5, we'd really prefer the 2 days. And
9 to 5.
9 to 5 gives you a really long window. 2 days should be more than sufficient. We're going to have photo sims based on it. Typically an on-site demonstration is 1 day from like 9 to noon or 8 to 12 or something like that. So this is a really extended period of time.
What'd you do in Ipswich?
I honestly don't remember.
More than that. I think we should do, if it's a 2-day, if we make a concession of 9 to 5, then maybe the 2 days should be a Saturday, Sunday. People are at work from 9 to 5 on Friday. Nobody's around.
All right,
It should be a Saturday, Sunday if it's 2 days, if it's 9 to 5.
right. And, my personal opinion here with this is if the abutters are going to have issues, we should get all the information out and be as transparent as possible, and that avoids any problems down the road that someone says, well, it wasn't enough time, or this, that, and the other. So I think that's right, 2 days, 9 to 5, and you can coordinate with Mark.
So that works
What
for,
about the peer review? What steps are taken? Is that something?
Well, that's Mark
Mark's
and,
job?
Mark and
Oh.
and the applicant
Okay.
can coordinate that as well.
Yeah, so typically you would, we'd get an estimate for what it would cost, and then we'd take that money from you, holding an escrow. So as long as you're fine with that, we would do that.
Not unfamiliar with that process.
Okay.
But the plan
So,
is to
Marty?
maintain both towers.
That's
You're gonna
Beth.
remove the other one?
I don't think we'll remove it, but I think the town will.
Beth has something to say.
It's not ours, so we wouldn't.
It's not yours to move.
Go ahead.
When you were
Beth.
saying getting the information out, is there something that I could post on at least social media or the town site that we could let people know and help spread the word? And I don't know if we want to get something in the newspaper, but I'm
Well,
just
the
trying to think of
public-
various places to get it out.
The public notice goes out first, and then the balloon test gets scheduled before the public hearing, correct?
Correct.
So there's nothing, until the public hearing is scheduled, it's almost premature to
Okay.
alert people to something. We don't have the date,
But
so.
once it's scheduled.
Once it's
then Beth can
scheduled,
do
then
her thing.
absolutely.
Okay, I just wanted to, if there's more that we want to make sure that we're being very proactive.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that makes a lot of sense to be extra proactive, just because if we're going to have a lot of feedback, I'd rather hear from people beforehand. So that's all. I just wanted to see if there's something I could do to help on that.
Yeah, so once it's scheduled, I mean, I think the
Okay,
town
sounds
manager
great.
can post something on Facebook or whatever, so that people are aware. Because I think that if abutters are concerned, and I think Pat alluded to the fact that these are not necessarily popular for whatever reason, we want to be sure that everyone has as much information and that we can go through the subsections of section 7.2 very thoroughly and make sure all the questions are resolved and that whatever decision we make is supported, by the facts and are consistent with what is required in the bylaw. Okay? We good?
I don't have anything else.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you. Looking forward to seeing you all again soon. I'll be in touch.
Good night.
Okay, great.
200 feet from existing structure. This is within 200 feet.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is
You're juggling a lot of things.
grant opportunities. And I want to note that Matt Hamill has joined us. So, Mark, you submitted the designation so that whatever grant opportunities are out there, we have our foot in the door so that if we were to file a grant application, we've crossed the first hurdle by having that designation in place, correct?
Yes. We haven't heard back from the state yet, but I think it will be fairly soon.
Right. So Darcy and I and Mark attended an information session on Monday, and it was very informative, and there seemed to be one grant program that might be applicable for the Patton Homestead, but the individuals who were representing, what was the name of the outfit, Mass
Development.
Development, they didn't cover all the one-stop grant applications that are available, like MassWorks. And if you recall, the HDC submitted an application to MassWorks for sidewalks and other downtown improvements, I think about 2 years ago. And I think that their application was considered and may even have made the first cut. The grant was not ultimately awarded, but it's something that we should look at because it kind of plays into UTIL's proposal. Did we get anything from UTIL, Mark, in response to the planning board's comments the last time?
Yes, we have a revised scope. Should be in your packet.
Oh, okay, so we haven't seen it, but, the prior scope had a design standard streetscape and permitting frameworks. So if there were grant opportunities, they may cover that, the design standards or designs of the public realm. It's hard to actually say at this point, but that might be where a grant opportunity could be very beneficial. So let's see. So did you want to say anything more about the grant opportunities?
I wouldn't mind mentioning that, the shooting ranges that we have over by Chabaco, they did have a brownfields
Right.
grant that might be able to be used in that area. And I know right now they're looking to sign a 20-year lease instead of I think they're going on a 2 or 3 year lease at a time now, but they want a 20-year lease. But there might come a time when we're gonna have to clean that up after all these decades. So
Right.
there's another grant opportunity we might be able to, look at.
That's a tough one, because that lease can get signed for 20 years, well before any grant
I know.
were
I
to be
know. Gotta
obtained.
Think about, they wanna operate it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so I guess that's a to be continued. So the master plan implementation, no word on that from the select board, I assume.
It was, no, they told me they were taking off the agenda because they were focused on budget, but I was expecting it to be on the last agenda and it wasn't, so I'll talk to Joe, but I think it just
Well,
sort of-
I'm thinking that, maybe the implementation committee should not have members of the public. It should just have people from the town.
yeah.
I mean, it just could be communication with the different boards and commissions in town. And just have,
Some staff maybe, like DPW or,
yeah, just get all the town people together once or twice a year and see where we are on the master plan.
Yeah, I think that's the right way to go.
So I can take my letter with respect to the implementation committee and revise it. And I will do that, and we can have it on our agenda for the next meeting. Because one of the things that I think could have been done more cooperatively is the sale of the Patton Homestead. Because in our master plan, we have as a action item, looking at the open space and farmland preservation development bylaw and the estate overlay district bylaw. The Patton Homestead qualifies as an estate under the estate overlay district. And so the present plan for the Patton Homestead is to sell it to presumably a nonprofit, it's some type of foundation run by the Patton family, and the 21-acre parcel is to be divided such that only 5 acres are to be sold. And this is subject to approval at town meeting and probably other contingencies. But had we worked in concert, maybe the amendments to the bylaw and the sale could have happened as a package with a proposal. And so, again, I've alluded to the fact that I'm working on this draft, but one of the ideas for the estate house is to allow some commercial reuse. because some of these estate houses are really large, and they're not really saleable because of their size. I mean, most families don't need 10 bedrooms and 5,000 square feet or 7,000 square feet of space. Or like the Patton homestead needs so much work. And you could see that even if it's sold to a foundation of some sort, they could have a gift shop. That's a commercial use. It's not allowed right now. That's an RA district. So the thought from my discussion with Joe is that they're going to seek a variance from the ZBA. But had we been communicating, we might have brainstormed a different result. And I am not suggesting that the sale to a foundation run by the Patton family is a bad idea. I think it is a good idea, given the nature of the gift and the intent of the gift, which was to honor General Patton and assist veterans. So that's not the point that I'm making, but I think that there are a lot of things in my little speech here. One is to get an amended letter about an implementation committee, and that committee, had it existed, could have looked at this more holistically than piecemeal. And that's, without an implementation committee like that, the tendency is to just have this, everything's in a silo, instead of looking at the picture of the town as a whole. So. Anybody have any thoughts on that? So, why don't we move on to accessory dwelling unit design guidelines?
Which item on the agenda, Marty?
The accessory dwelling unit design guidelines.
3B2,
Okay.
3B1, 2.
So, I noted at the last meeting that I attempted to print out Boston's design guidelines, and it was unsuccessful. Some of the pages printed and others did not, so I don't know what that issue is, but I think we do need to look at Boston's design guidelines, because I thought they were actually rather well done, and they posed questions, to the people who were potentially going to add ADUs, and I thought that was a very constructive way of introducing the guidelines. So,
The trick with the Boston guidelines is it's very much, obviously, urban
Right,
focused.
right.
So it has to be,
it tailored,
yeah,
absolutely.
it has to be, so it might be that we need to find some guidelines that are more suburban focused and sort of combine those ideas with the Boston guidelines. But I thought there were a lot of good ideas in the Boston guidelines, and it
Right.
was very thorough.
Well, it had the way it was structured with the kind of the questions, I thought
Yes.
was a good idea.
Yes.
The actual examples.
And it gave a
Well,
lot of
more-
different examples, so it wasn't like here's a single solution. There were many, many different solutions, so it
Exactly.
showed you that you could really look at different sites in different ways,
Right.
is what my takeaway was.
So, maybe we could, do you know of any communities that have ADU guidelines?
I haven't
that might
hunted
be-
for them, but I think, and it's pretty early to be looking for them, but we could start, I can start looking around to see what's out there. But
Yeah.
the Boston ones were the ones that caught my eye. But
Yeah,
it has to be translated into a suburban setting
Right.
and streamlined. It's too comprehensive.
Okay, so why don't, if you don't mind, just put that on your radar.
Sure, yep.
And I think I tried to Google it, and to see if anything popped up, and I think it is premature. I
It's
think.
early for the,
Early
yeah.
days, yeah.
But it might be that some other design guidelines could be adapted. You know, in other words, not just ADU, but there might be some other types of design guidelines that could be adapted.
Yeah.
Not literally, but, you know, using some of their ideas.
Well, I don't, since the planning board's not involved in the approval of ADUs anymore, I don't have a sense of how many are being built.
I can help you with that, actually.
Beverly, I've noticed Beverly has a couple this year.
So we've had a fair amount, actually. I think there were 8 approved in Hamilton last year. So the state's put out a map of each town, how many they've issued. So computer is being very slow today.
St. Patrick's Day color themed.
So is the darker the color, the more ADUs?
Yeah, so according to this, 9 ADUs last year, 5 detached, 4 attached, which is quite a bit for our population. So
Yeah.
Wenham only had 2 ADUs approved last year.
How many did we have again?
9.
9.
9. And how many were detached?
5.
Or 5.
Beverly had 12, but, obviously a much larger community. Gloucester had just 1. Essex just had 1. Ipswich had 9 as well.
What does Manchester show?
2.
2 attached.
Interesting. Okay, so again, that's a work in progress. So we can turn to the town center zoning. And since we just got this, we can all take a moment to review it. Abel, do you have a copy?
I do, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
I had a
you-
chance to look at it
you
earlier.
have a copy too?
The one thing I would say, just to step back to the design guidelines. This was sort of on our horizon at some point, and I think my sense in the approach would be to look at the town-wide at a simple set of design guidelines, and then zero in on particular things that are quite different. ADUs could be one of them, and then, of course, the town center would be another. So you have kind of a broad general set of design guidelines with kind of limited body of material. And then as you get more specific, you can zero in on specific things. So I think, I like the idea it was suggested to look at what's available out there and find out which ones might best fit the town of Hamilton. I think that's something we can do, even as maybe a subcommittee, a couple of people working on it, to make some progress. And then the difficult part is going to be the graphics for us. I think writing it is not going to be difficult. I think to come to some agreement on that, but I do think it's not that complicated really. But I think the graphics will be very important because they should be just full of graphics, make it easy to read, more accessible. But anyway, I think that should be a strategy for design guidelines going forward. But anyway, to answer your question, I looked at the UTIL revised scope. They're still hovering around the $9,000 mark, but what they essentially did was eliminate public realm and design guidelines, which I think, from my standpoint, first reading their first proposal, there's no way they could have done either one of those things justice in the time they had allocated to do it. So I don't think that was a big loss. I think it would be, if we could get a grant to help us out in some of these, especially to pay for things like graphic design on it, on the guidelines, or even public realm, kind of pick a project there that would really be good utilization of that mass development opportunity. But my sense is that they pretty much complied with what we had asked them to do, put them together. We did ask for deliverables, a little bit more elaboration on that, and they'd come back with that. So they have basically the educational guide and materials is the predominant one. Now with the step-by-step code guide and a handout material for public use. I think those were two important things. And they also, the recommendation at our last meeting was to have, or 2 meetings ago, was to have 2 example parcels. And I think if we can choose 2 very carefully, we can really get them to do even some scenario options for larger lots in the town center, which would be kind of useful for the planning board going forward. So I think we can kind of get more out of them if we're really selective in terms of what are the 2 parcels. I'd like to see us kind of direct this a little bit more than the form-based code. They sort of went off on that, and it got sidetracked with the other issues, as we all know, the 3A and the primarily, and the school project. But I would say, given the amount of time they've got 13 hours for project management and coordination. Seems a little heavy, but that's not unreasonable. And then 47 hours for the educational guide and materials. So I think this would be I would be in favor of this particular proposal, without any changes to it. I could really support this. But I'd like to get, now that we have their scope, maybe just fill in a little bit of maybe what we see in the scope of each one of those. That is not going to vary that much from what they have, but I just would like to kind of zero in with them on what might be most important for Hamilton, to tackle. The language is just a little bit loose, and it could mean a lot of different things. But by and large, I think they did a good job in responding. The public realm is really important for us because that would directly affect any kind of mass development project, like an HDC project wanting to improve sidewalks. Right now, there is no guide because that would fall within the public realm. The form-based code is all private development, nothing to do with the streets. Even though we had put that in the original scope with UTIL, they decided not to address it because they felt they couldn't write a code for public land, which was their interpretation. But in fact, the town needs guidance to do, DPW would need guidance. So, I thought we could perhaps do that as design guidelines, incorporate the public realm, because that would include actually parking, streets, travel lanes, streetscapes, sidewalk material, street trees, furniture in certain areas, anything to kind of enhance the general safety of the downtown and desirability to spend time there. And those are the key things for the public realm. So I think that should be a priority on the planning board to kind of tackle that, at some stage.
Well, not to interrupt you, but we should really think about that because I think the focus of this, I mentioned MassWorks, that's the actual work that's done on the sidewalk. What we need initially is planning. We need to design it. What do we want to see in the way of trees and sidewalks, whatever, not actual construction, because.
No, it's got to be planned. That's what it is. It's a guide.
It's planning, and so, Mark, we should really think about this because we learned from mass development that the deadlines on these things are like June 30th. Am I correct in my recollection?
Yep.
So we have to, so if we want to get in the queue for any planning, we've got to jump on it.
Right.
And I think it's,
So Marnie, what you're suggesting is that we might get a consultant who would do some planning, but in collaboration with the planning board, and again, collaboratively, what could grow out of that planning, I think, Emil, you're alluding to, is that's where the guidelines could grow out. You do the planning and let the guidelines grow out of that in the public realm, but you'd have it be led by a professional rather than the planning board take all the initiative.
oh, I think so. I think it's more than.
Yeah.
But it'd be collaborative. You wouldn't
Yes,
just
yes.
sail the consultant off on their own.
Oh,
No, you have to give a scope of work. So,
consultant would
if it's an
collaborate with-
RFQ or something like that, then you'd have to define what the project is.
Absolutely.
And I think that's something we could do.
So then if we
And-
want to do that, it seems like the first step is to, like you say, define that scope of work, almost in a sense, create a combination RFP and draft for a application for a grant.
Grants, yeah.
right. Maybe we should
Exactly.
like.
So
have
we
a
would not be
workshop.
designing it. We're going to set up what the
Yeah.
work product
But
should be.
we'd create, in a sense, an RFP that would then form the framework for the
Yeah.
grant proposal.
What
Right.
I'm thinking is we should have like a workshop, what
Right.
our ideas are for
Right.
what you
Yeah.
would put in the
That-
RFP.
Right.
Yeah, no, I think that would be a very good thing to do, I think.
Yeah, if we could get some good graphics for the downtown, maybe from what UTIL did, and so we see what we have.
Oh, you're saying to use it as tools for a workshop?
Yes.
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 You know,
yes. So
like an
there's-
existing
there's plenty-
conditions.
There's plenty of documentation and mapping between what UTIL did, what the advisory committee did, what the town has. There's lots of base information that you could lay out on a table and do workshops with.
Right, and so the workshop would just basically be saying, we want to see plans that promote the following goals.
Would the master plan have a place in this?
This would be
Not
much
really,
more
it's not that
specific.
detailed.
No.
This is really specific.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do we want to see? So just, I'm going off track here, but remember the pictures we saw of Bay Road with the trees? Maybe we want a professional to give us ideas on how we can implement that vision for Bay Road. That's
Well,
not,
what you can do is.
I would say just kind of block out really what it is we really want to do. And I think we can do that in a workshop. You know, work on the various parts of a public realm.
Right.
And because Bay Road will be treated differently than Willow Street. So
Right.
it's not like a one size fits all.
exactly.
Or street lights. Do you want the same street light on,
Right.
X, Y, and Z? So it's really look at the main thoroughfares as sort of the starting point, and the activities that are now laid out in the form-based code for those areas. Those two things are the beginning. And now put together how to improve that environment. You know, if it's walkability, sidewalks, and even try to get some pocket parks in here and there just to make it more interesting.
Right.
And landscaping, street trees, that's really important.
Right.
But you only do that in key areas.
Right.
It's not just anytime you get a chance to do it. It's got to be really studied and designed.
Right.
So I think, and then you go after the pictures and the graphics. The UTL did cover some things in their graphics, but it's mostly helpful for interpreting the code. But I think things like photographs, or even could be different sites, or things that have been done before, or drawings even, of things that represent improvements to the public realm.
Right.
But when we assemble, well, what are all the pieces that are involved in the public realm? When we start assembling that, then those are the tools we're going to work with to kind of figure out, well, what do we want where, and to what extent. We're not going to design it. We're not going to say put brick on all the sidewalks or anything like that, but allow the professional to kind of use their own sense when they look at what we need to create the kind of unity of a nice design for the downtown. So it's not all the same, but it all works together.
Right.
It's all part of a family of designs that.
Right.
So the first step might be to create a framework for a workshop. In other words, create an agenda for or framework for a workshop, then do the workshop. Then out of that, see if we can craft the beginnings of an RFP and sort of grant framework, and then work with.
Yeah, it's a fun project, I have to say. So, it's not all drudgery.
right.
But those would be, I think those would be the steps.
Yeah,
And I would just say that in terms of the plan itself, DPW would have to be sort of involved as I am because
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
ultimately
Absolutely,
in
yeah.
charge of everything.
oh, sure, yeah.
Do you think that we could have this in place by our, well, at least have some first steps for our next meeting, which is, I believe, on,
3 weeks away.
it's
3
on
weeks.
the 24th?
I think it's the 31st, I think, Martin. I think we have 3 weeks.
Our next,
No, it's 24th, so
the
2 weeks.
24th is our next meeting.
Yep.
Oh, it was changed. I got that off. Okay, great. Put together a framework by then? You mean to have the workshop on the 24th?
No, to put
No,
a
the
framework for the
framework.
workshop.
Yeah.
No, how would you structure the workshop? What base materials would you be using? How
Oh,
would
yeah,
you, how
sure,
would
we
you
can-
orchestrate the workshop? I think that's reasonable in 2 weeks to
Right.
Yeah.
have something for discussion.
Yeah,
Yeah, so.
yeah, I'll take a look at
Base
that.
materials and,
Because the good thing is we don't have to generate, we don't have to create the base materials. We have base materials, it's just organizing them in a sensible way.
right,
Yeah.
right. And then just have the kinds of ideas that would create the walkability and that would promote the development
Yeah,
that's set
that's
forth
right.
in the form-based code, through
Yeah.
the street trees and pocket parts and
Yeah,
all that, the parking and
yeah,
whatever. You know, the tools that could be used in the different areas, because it would be different in the different areas.
yeah. Design lines could follow that because again, it's all private development and it's about building's relationship to the public realm and to each other. That's what the design guidelines would be. So that, again, we could handle that a little later. That's a little bit more work. But at the public realm, certainly, we should be able to get that done pretty quickly.
Okay.
So I would echo Emil's comments about the util proposal. I support the proportions of work here. And Emil, to address the lack of specificity in the second part, would it make sense for the board to maybe even right now to discuss what some examples of parcels or sort of permitting processes would be the most useful so that we're guiding util, and then say, this is what we think, util, what do you think would be the most useful? Would that be beneficial right now?
Well, they're talking about really two types, one conforming and one non-conforming parcel. The only thing I would add in there is that we have a couple of larger parcels in town, but most of them are relatively small parcels. So I'd like to get a larger parcel in the downtown. Again, one conforming and then certainly non-conforming, because the goal in the educational guide is for us to learn how to use the code.
Right.
Just to be comfortable with it. And along with the town, we could select those sites. I think we could do that.
So is the large Willow Street site, is that non-conforming?
Yeah, I think the end of Willow is,
So that might be
Non-conforming.
a good candidate for the non-conforming.
that's one of the larger parcels.
And it's a
In the
weird
downtown.
shape. Being a weird shape makes it more complicated. It's sort of a wedge shape.
Which parcel are you referring to?
At the end of Willow, north end of Willow.
Lamson, is that what it
Oh,
is?
okay, okay. Dodge Tree and Welton
Tree,
Lambs.
yeah,
Yeah,
yep.
okay. Yeah,
It's a large, complex site that's an odd shape with
Really
awkward access to the rear part of the parcel and locked in by the train
Right,
tracks. So it's
yeah.
got lots of odd
yeah.
conditions.
Ashley Fuel now, right?
I'm sorry?
That's Ashley Fuel now? Is that the?
Yeah, it's Ashley
Ashley
Fuel,
Fuel,
yeah.
Yeah, that's
And then
fuel.
what would, and then does the Crosby's lot, is that a conforming? Or would you pick something?
That's
more
already
non-size?
really, they kind of did an analysis on it. We could talk as a board about how successful their analysis is of the Crosbys. Hamilton Crossing location.
Yeah,
Is that what you
that-
mean, Jonathan?
Well, yeah, but would that be a useful case study? Maybe something else would be a better case study. Is there an underutilized lot that's more medium-sized there? I mean, a good one would have been the one that's already built, you know, on Willow Street, but
Yeah.
that's done.
I think the Cumberland Farms has a real missed opportunity on their part.
Maybe that's one.
It could be one.
So maybe those are the two there, the Cumberland
Yeah.
Farms and the oil company.
Or even how those two relate across the street from each other, you know, the Hamilton Crossing and that.
That straddles
I-
them,
Oh, okay.
and that's,
I haven't really looked at that in a lot of detail, but recently, but the others are quite small properties, and there the real key is going to be how to develop the back of the lot. Is really going to be neat, you know, along the
well, maybe that would be one, is a small deep lot.
small deep lot, combining, you know, allowing them to say cross a property line for parking, sort of shared parking between front building and back building kind of thing.
That would be more,
Another,
probably interesting and fraught than, say, Cumberland Farms, as a case study.
yeah.
Yeah.
Trying to think of what's
We could
what's
get their
difficult.
opinion too, I think, on this, but we should give them our preferred ones, I think.
Yeah, and maybe we give them more than two, we give them three or four,
Yeah.
and say, what do you think would be the best out of these?
Right.
Or
Yeah.
do you think of something else?
Right.
Is the honeycomb lot a complicated one?
Well, Carriage Lane's going to be a complicated one, and the other one I really think has potential is Cummings Avenue. But those are two neat projects going forward. But
Well, should we start writing some of these down I mean, right now we've got about 5.
right,
I always hear about the Willow Street industrial use, people
yeah,
wanting.
that's the one that showed up as people wanting more change there than less change. So that by far was the winner in terms of, you know, do something with this.
And maybe we rank them. We come up with 5 or
Yeah.
6 and then rank them, what we think are the most useful, and then let Utilia rank them, and we come to agreement.
You know, I think that Dodge Tree is, well,
Maybe that
That's-
gets ranked 1.
that's the most vacant,
Yep.
if you will.
And it's complicated, too.
It's
It's a
complicated.
corner, it's a wedge, it's locked in,
Drag.
and it's hard to get to the back of it.
Yeah, but
Shallow in parts, deep in other parts.
am I right? There's really no building there. It's more just the storage of equipment.
Yeah,
Yep.
So it has the potential to change hands easier than, say, what just happened with Welch and Lamson that was sold to another fuel company, if you follow me.
Yep.
And even the garages, Sammy's garage was transferred to someone else. So those uses are a little bit locked in, at least for the
well, the other thing,
future, but
if we come up with a scenario on that would really maybe convince the fuel company that there's some monetary advantage to selling that property
That's
to a
true.
developer if they follow that and then move out of town or something. That's inappropriate for downtown. I don't know if well, I don't want to get into that, but whether that was part of the old code that they were allowed to use, that was an allowed use on Willow Street, on the Willow Street district. But anyway, it got approved.
Well, do we want to start building a list right now?
yeah,
Can somebody write things down?
Mark, can you be our scrivener?
Sure. So, we have Dodge Street,
Dodge Tree.
Dodge Tree.
It's really that whole
That whole end of the Willow
that
Street.
whole end.
Yeah,
of
the whole
Willow
north
Street.
end of Willow on the east side.
Yeah,
Cumberland Farms, was that another one?
Yeah,
Potentially, yeah. And then Emil mentioned Cummings Ave as just a general approach, is interesting.
yeah, those you can almost hold off because they're not single parcels. They're really multiple parcels. But again, the idea, if you show a nice development in there, that's the sort of thing that could attract a developer. Not trying to build up the downtown, but I think we have a nice, safe organization to the form-based code where you could really do some nice improvements to allow people to spend more time in our downtown. those are two pretty exciting areas, I think. So you could almost keep those at the end, Cummings and Carriage Lane. But the other critical ones would be Cumberland Farms. And they already, I don't know how they'd feel about retackling Hamilton Crossing, but I think they did a nice job, frankly, on doing that. I would make some changes to it, but by and large, I think they did a pretty good reanalysis of it with it.
It seems like the other lots would bear more fruit.
The thing with the shopping center is it was excluded from 3A, so it's anything there is pretty much going to have to be by special permit. So you would have more of a say. It would be a longer process than like a typical site plan review in the other districts. So
Yeah. Well, I think the deep lots certainly along the east side of Bay Road, up to maybe Carriage. So it could be that area from Cumberland Farms up to the rear lots of Carriage Lane.
So that's great to move. So lot 46 and 227
Yeah,
and 228.
228.
So those three lots are really deep and awkward.
Yeah, again, there's some really hidden opportunities there that would, again, make a big difference.
Especially with shared connections across the back of them.
Yeah, exactly. That would be really important parking for downtown. Yeah. Yeah, so maybe working with Mark just to get something back to UTL, just to elaborate a little on that step-by-step code guide, on selection of parcels. We can just kind of float by them. These are ideas that the planning board discussed as options and get their input on it. I could write something up with the reasons why we want to investigate these, because there's some opportunities that are not evident. It's not evident when the way the form-based code came out, but we know that those really have potential, and UTL knows that too. But this could be a good thing, I think, for you to get back to UTL, just to put them on. I'd like to see the planning board have a little more control of what happens with the public realm.
I think the why is useful in adding to the list.
The what?
The why, in other words, this property because, this property because, this property because.
Yeah, absolutely. So if they disagree with it, then they can tell us.
Yes.
And yeah, I can draft something if you like on that. And
Is it the medical offices on Willow Street? Is that a?
Emil, I could send out like some kind of survey to the board where people can vote on their favorites or score them somehow. Would that be helpful?
Sure. I mean, people being planning board or?
Yeah, just planning board.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. I'll try to group them as individual, maybe sort of two lists, one individual properties and then one important groups of properties that could give you a more dramatic change in the downtown. And none of this is going to be excessive. But it would really give the downtown some vitality that's missing. And it's not like we're really going to go in and really create a new downtown in Hamilton, but I think the character is going to be preserved, the scale is going to be preserved, and now we're going to do enhancements to the public realm that include sidewalks and street lights and street trees, and just be more specific about those, where they should happen and how they would differ. And the other thing is introduce a little park here and there. I know the HDC wanted one at the end of Railroad, where it butts 1A. They were looking at that small park. I mean, that's sort of prime real estate, being in that location. You can make the argument both ways, but I think that has potential. Or even lot 45, which is actually right behind 43. Anyway,
I think the value in having a discussion and guidelines on the public realm would be like if the HDC did create that parcel at the end of Railroad as a public park, instead of looking at it in isolation, if you looked at it as part of the gateway and connection across Bay Road, like we talked about in the form-based code process and in the advisory committee process, it would be the outcome would be probably a stronger asset to the downtown, looking at it holistically rather than just as a single parcel.
Right.
Look at it
Yeah,
as
exactly, because single
look at
parcel,
it as
because
a
they're so
fragment
small,
of
you
the whole
really,
intersection.
yeah, no, that's right.
That's a pretty small parcel, actually.
Yes, but if, depending upon the decisions you make, you can make it into a gateway so you don't sail past Railroad Avenue on Bay Road, not
Absolutely.
knowing it was
No,
there.
I agree with you, and I was suggesting that as a building site, it's pretty small, but
Yeah.
as a introduction to the commercial area,
Yeah.
it could be very,
You know, I
Yeah.
reiterate my story about my wife being in Hamilton for 4 years before she discovered that Railroad Avenue even existed. She drove right past it. Oh, there's a cute little thing down here. I never knew about it.
How about the
There's a
post
reason she didn't notice it.
it's the post office, so we have no control over the front of it, but, there's the little parklet
Yeah,
there, because that
but you can
building-
create a gateway that at 30 miles an hour you can see as you drive down Bay Road.
Yeah, and
That's all.
that, I was thinking about these things, and since Bay Road is a state highway, we have limited control over that, but can we reduce the speed limit on Bay Road through the downtown? Because it always amazes me how fast people drive through town.
Well, sometimes you can get permission to do like a nubbin or something like that at the end of an intersection or a parking space, as long as it doesn't narrow the passage on
Yep.
the road. And that would be something that, again, could be
Part
part
of
of this public realm,
Is
grant
to
process
really
design.
slow traffic down.
Yeah, so you slow traffic with urban design and road width, not with signs.
Right, oh,
Signs do not
exactly,
slow
yeah.
things down, so.
I know just when I was in Pittsburgh over the holidays, driving through some of these neighborhoods, the roads, literally, they create almost barriers so that you're driving straight, and then you actually have to turn to keep driving straight. You just cannot.
Well, Europe is chock full of those strategies. We're just
Yeah.
way behind in this country,
Yeah,
so.
yeah. And so that definitely could be incorporated into this public realm, because to slow people down so they can actually see what's there,
Right.
Yeah,
so. All right, well, that's good. We'll do a little survey and get geared up for UTIL, and then maybe once
Yeah.
we get their feedback, we can schedule the dates where they will, attend our meetings, so that we have that.
Sure.
Because the money has to be expended by the end of June, am I correct?
June 30th, yep.
June
June
30th,
30th,
so
it's pretty quick.
it's pretty quick. We have to, get,
Ball rolling.
yeah.
You need a vote on this, or on the UTO contract, or Mark, or is that?
Or just a some
I
sort of
think
support.
I have your general approval. I can ask Joe to sign it tomorrow.
Yeah,
Do
no.
we
I
want to do
think
a quick
it's-
vote?
Sure.
Sure.
I'll entertain a motion.
A motion to send to Joe the, let's see now, town
Revised.
center zoning that we discussed tonight?
Well, there's a
Revised scope of
proposal from UTIL.
Proposal for UTL.
Yeah,
Thank you.
make a motion to support the proposal from UTIL as allocated.
Second.
With additional services, and it's dated 3/10/26.
Roll
Sorry,
call
what's
vote.
that? Emil?
The topic is Hamilton Town Center Code
Yes.
additional services, and the date is 3/10/2026.
We want the current one, not the previous one.
Yes,
This is 3/10, yeah.
Yes.
that's correct.
This is for a grant application, or are we
No.
supporting
No, we're
it
spending
regardless
No.
of
We're
what?
No, this
spending
is-
money
this-
to get up to speed on the
Consultant.
implementation of
We are
the
trying to get a
form-based
grant,
code.
or
No.
that's
For
not part of this?
for another thing, we're trying to get a grant, but
A different thing.
Yes. So, did we have a second?
Yes, I second.
Yes,
Okay.
so roll call vote, Pat Norton,
Pat Norton, aye.
Jonathan Poor,
Jonathan Poor, aye.
Emil Dahlquist,
Emil Dahlquist, aye.
Darcy Dale,
Darcy Dale, aye.
Beth Herr,
Beth, her, aye.
and Marnie Crouch, aye. So we're good to go. Okay, so, let's see what the time is. We like to talk.
Yeah.
So, let's cut to the chase here. So, the groundwater protection overlay district, I thought it was very useful to have the presentation made by David Smith and Greg Bernard. And I asked Mark to supply the board with the proposed amendment to, let's see, what is that? Section 9.1.4. So you should have that in your package. And Jonathan, you were concerned about having an expert look at this. And, you know, I think that maybe we do have to make some type of again, I'm not sure.
Specifically on this, I think this is a great start, and I think what would be useful here is to add metrics to some of these points. So for example, specifically, to provide a greater degree of protection to groundwater sources, there needs to be some metrics around that.
Like, what do you mean in terms of metrics, though?
Well, for example, it talks about adequately monitored, you know, or operates, let's see. For example, there's specific metrics in the nitrogen-sensitive areas, right? But this doesn't really cover that. You know, so the question is, do you use some of the metrics or design requirements for nitrogen-sensitive areas? Or if you're saying that you can reduce from 80,000 square feet, provided the applicant can demonstrate a greater degree of protection, but to what greater degree? A 0.0001% greater degree? Or what is the metric? What's the standard here? And there are standards around nitrogen-sensitive areas. There's other standards around alternative systems, but we don't quite have it here. And I don't feel like I can add that information. I would need to rely on a sanitary engineer to help us with that.
Right, but so the takeaway that I got from this Greg Bernard, it's based on bedrooms.
Yes, and that's the beginnings of one metric, but there's another metric in that when you have an awkward site or a tight site or a sensitive site, there are different ways to design the system, but they have to meet some performance standards. So like if it's a sand filtration system or you know, some of these more experimental systems, there just needs to be, I think, a little bit more specificity about what the bar is that we're supposed to meet.
Yeah, there's the number of bedrooms is the beginning. Then you have to determine what the ground conditions are, the soil composition. You know, how well does it infiltrate? Does water infiltrate? That's when they go through the perk tests out there. So it's a little hard to say. They were talking about, I listening to the meeting, 10,000 square feet of lot per bedroom as sort of a guide. But you could have a soil condition where maybe that doesn't work if you're on a lot of rock, for example, or if you're on silt area or something like that. You know, that would have to be built above the ground, the whole septic system. So, I mean, everything has to comply, I guess, with Title V, but
what you're trying to do is
Pat probably has a good understanding of the complications of it.
What you're trying to do is you're trying to raise the bar from the standard Title V compliance. But the question is, how do you create that metric of raising that bar? In the past, it was 80,000 square feet, you know, go from 40 to 80. that was one way to raise the bar. And what we're saying, that's also a little bit of an arbitrary metric. There's more technical metrics than that. So one idea would be to maybe contact an engineering firm that does alternative systems. I don't have the names of those engineers, but I've worked with septic contractors who do alternative systems. And I might be able to get the names of some engineers who design those systems, and then we could maybe see, are there potentially some metrics or some standards that we can refer to, or is there a little bit more specificity about, that takes the sentence, provide a greater degree of protection for groundwater sources than a conventional septic system, take that to the next level?
Yeah, I get that.
And I don't know the answer. I would need somebody to guide me.
Yeah, and, you know, I just have two comments. One is, some of this could be part of regulations as opposed to the bylaw.
Could be, yeah.
And two is, whatever we put in the bylaw, we should recognize that these Title V regulations that are issued by the Commonwealth, they can change. So we don't want to be so specific that whatever we put in the bylaw is obsolete because there's some new system out there.
Sure.
So those are considerations. So there are really three, to your point and to the 2 points that I made. You know, how we can have something that works, but isn't so specific that it could become obsolete, or, you know, if it's subject to a regulation, we can change our regulations much easier than we can change a bylaw.
Yeah, so then, for example, it might be that this references a regulation, and then in the regulation, it references some standards that might move, but at least we can adjust those standards. But I don't have enough information to frame that, and I feel like we could use an engineer to help us.
Yeah, and you know, to your point, I mean, the information we got was very helpful, but it wasn't too much in depth, because there was only the reference to enhanced nitrogen removal technologies and.
Right, and that's out there, but we need to be more specific than that.
I think you guys are both probably spot on. I think the wording is important. I mean, to encourage a non-conventional system is probably not the right way to say it, but
No.
all four is an engineer who has probably one of the best groundwater discharge permit minds around the region anyways. A gentleman by the name of Art Cunningham, and he helped us with our system. I think what you have is not bad. Like the overly, you have a pretty high bar of the 80,000 square feet, even though it's arbitrary, but you allow for an exception with systems that comply with the groundwater discharge permit process, which is what governs, this, basically every non-conventional system that that anyone would apply.
Yeah,
If you have a chemical, if you have something similar like Gordon Comma, which is a chemical treatment plant, that's a groundwater discharge permit. If you have something like the Biolabs has, which is a solar aquatic system that uses no chemicals to treat water and discharge that back into the ground, that's also a groundwater. It's the same permit. It's two drastically different systems, but they all are governed by the same and those requirements change about every 2 years. For what you have to monitor for what they allow in discharge volumes, and that's very specific to the site condition. Those volumes are, so again, leaving it super generic is good, but making the right reference is also good.
That's what I'm not after.
But I don't know if
we
you
can't
have to
des-
change
we can't-
anything.
We can't design it, but making sure that it's locked into the right references, that's all. And I don't feel like I have the expertise to
And I'm
make sure
happy to
that.
reach out to Art, who helps us with ours, and, he might actually also make the offer to anyone who wants to come. If the board wants to come, it could be after I leave the board even. Want to come to New England Biolabs, and I can tour the system so you can see what one looks like in
Great.
person, and Art could be there to talk to you about it, and you can explain to him what you want to do, and he can give you an idea of how to achieve that. If you guys want to come up with a time and date that works for everyone, be happy to accommodate that.
Sounds great.
Sounds great. So, but I would feel more comfortable if somebody like this expert looked at this wording
Yep.
to make sure that we're not tripping into something, that's
Yeah,
all.
He'd be happy to.
So, this I don't remember from the presentation. So, our septic inspector does the Title V work with respect to just a run-of-the-mill conventional system. And if you don't have a run-of-the-mill conventional septic system, do you need a groundwater discharge permit?
Maybe not necessarily.
Because at what point does the septic system leave the purview of the town's septic inspector and have to have approval from the Commonwealth?
That's a really good question.
Because I guess that's kind of what you're getting at.
Yes.
Is that if in fact, if you don't have a conventional system, if you have to have a groundwater discharge permit,
Yeah.
all you have to do is put that in the bylaw, because that covers it. Then that permit comes from the Commonwealth.
And the question is that too onerous? Is that the right way to do it? You know, how?
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah, and somebody else needs to look at this.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something an engineer like Art could tell you also. When
Yeah,
does
I don't
when does
think-
the bar leave Board of Health and go to state? What technologies is the Board of Health able to?
Yeah.
And you want to make it so that you are protecting your groundwater, but not making it so that that trigger happens prematurely. You know, so that everybody has financial hardship, no matter where they are, trying to put in a conventional septic system.
I don't know, not all conventional septic systems are created equal either. There's some features in the leaching field and
Sure.
the treatment of the pipes and everything else that are different, that are more beneficial to the groundwater supply.
Yep.
Or not. Also, maybe even including a clause to address, treatment is one thing, but the quantity of waste is another, like the amount of, maybe there's an accommodation that gets made for systems you might employ to reuse gray water, like your washing machine, dishwasher, those kind of things, if you employ some technologies related. That's also, it's WP 85 is the state code requirement. It's requiring a permit to reuse gray water, and it's actually pretty onerous, which is too bad because it's
Those
nice
are
water.
those are complicated. I support that, but that it really becomes tangled when you
We
do
kind
that.
of looked into that at our house,
Yep.
because we wanted to put in a sink in our garage, but to hook that up to our septic system, we have the impediment of the stairwell from the basement to the kitchen. So it would be, we thought we could just pump the gray water out the back. No, it was gonna be way complicated. It wasn't gonna work. It sounded like a plan, but it wasn't
Well, why don't we
gonna
start,
fit.
why don't we start with a review of what's written here? And if he could look at that and give us some guidance on whether we've got the right triggers in here and whether we've got the right metrics. With the understanding of what the goal is.
My only comment on metrics is that there is some benefit in not having like hard limits, because you're locking yourself into, if you said it has to be 50%, better than a conventional system, you're kind of locking yourself into that. Whereas the applicant might be willing to make concessions, like they might be willing to say, we'll have some sort of guarantee on the deed that it will be no larger than a 3-bedroom house or certain square footage. So there's an opportunity for some.
Yeah, no, I'm not suggesting you lock in one specific metric. Right now, it feels a little bit vague, a little squishy.
Sure.
So is there an intermediate step? And it's primarily kind of the second bullet there, provide a greater degree of protection, is. What
Well,
greater
these
degree?
enhanced nitrogen removal technologies obviously provide a greater degree of protection because you can increase the number of bedrooms
Yes.
from 5 or 6.
Yes.
So that's, what I'm thinking is maybe we then just have to refer to an enhanced nitrogen removal.
But nitrogen isn't the only thing of concern now.
Exactly.
Phosphorus.
That's one, yes.
Phosphorus is now on the
That's
list.
one metric.
TDS,
So that's
total
why
dissolved
it
solids,
really
there's all
needs
that
to be
stuff.
looked at more comprehensively, in my
Right.
opinion. Each of these is sort of an isolated arbitrary metric. You know, the number of bedrooms is sort of an isolated rule of thumb. The
Well, but I
nitrogen
think that's-
sensitive isn't an isolated piece. It's looking at it holistically from an engineer's
If you
perspective.
get too specific, though, are you then subject to you said every 2 years, it kind of changes.
Well, again, it's just making the right reference to the,
Yes,
to
yeah.
the codes that govern these things.
So that as those codes change, it's,
Yeah.
it's tied into those. But I don't feel like we're quite there yet.
No, I agree.
That's all.
I don't think we have the funds to engage an
Art will do the request that got made, he will be.
And
able
this
to
is
do it.
informally,
It's a couple paragraphs here.
It's a quick
Yep.
look.
Yep.
Yeah, so the
Then
question.
you have to come visit us at New England Biolabs.
Okay, okay,
Quid pro quo there,
okay,
Jonathan.
okay,
I'd love to, yes.
yeah, so,
be really
so,
Already is gone.
yeah, so, and, you know,
He's
I,
gone.
I looked at Title V and I thought, when we were looking at this gray water issue, I thought, I'll look at Title V and I'll figure this out. And I looked at Title V and I went, not in my lifetime. I mean, it's like page after page after page of the densest regulations you could ever imagine. And,
You know, and it might even be that it's not hard and fast metrics. It might be just a little bit more encouragement to go in the right direction.
right,
yeah, or, yeah, well, to be continued.
to be continued.
But I think it's a great start, but I would feel more.
Is there a
com-
motion to close the hearing?
I would just feel more comfortable with a little bit more, expert, review.
Okay, and then, so we touched on the patent homestead, so we don't need to do that. But one of the other projects that I think we need to put on our radar is redoing the Section 11 definitions of our zoning bylaw, because they're kind of an unholy mess. I think all the definitions should be alphabetical, and that at the end of that section, it's easy enough to cross-reference where the definition appears in the zoning bylaws.
I
So-
support that, and I also feel there's some definitions that are missing.
Yes.
Yes.
That's a big problem.
So there's sort of, it's almost a two-prong effort. One is to take what you have and reformat it so that it's consolidated, it's alphabetical, it makes sense, and make sure that the terms match how the bylaws are written, that there's no change of terms.
Yeah,
So that's sort of one prong to the effort, and the other prong is to look through the bylaws for missing definitions
Yeah.
or inaccurate definitions. You know, for example, you know, definition of lot coverage, things like that.
who would like to spearhead that initiative?
I can help with that.
Great, Darcy, thanks. Okay, I think that we,
Would it be helpful to ask the building inspector if he feels like there's any particular definitions that might be missing?
well, he actually did provide some definitions to Section 4. But there was a glitch there, and they were never incorporated with our other bylaw
So maybe we need to revisit that
Yeah,
process, and then, like I say, an example of one that's missing or not clear is lot coverage,
yeah,
which is kind of key.
yeah, and I think that's in Section 4. And so a lot of these definitions, I don't know where they stand after the 3A and the form-based code. I don't know if, did we do? My memory's poor.
There
on
were
this.
some definitions in the form-based code,
And
but
they're probably then now in section 11, I hope,
maybe.
maybe.
But that's the first thing is to gather.
We are still waiting on Browns Hill. We don't have the Attorney General's approval yet, so that's still in kind of on hold, but once we have that, I think there's a couple of definitions that will be added. And once we have that, there's been so many changes to the bylaw. What I'll plan to do is just make copies for you all so that everyone has a handy copy.
Okay. I think there's only one thing left to do.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Roll call vote. Pat Norton,
Pat Norton, aye.
Jonathan Poor,
Jonathan Poor, aye.
Emil Dahlquist.
We lost everybody.
I think they lost, I saw their lips moving at one point, and then no one could hear them. I think we just lost
Oh,
their participation at
Oh,
some point.
really? Darcy Dale
Darcy Dale, aye?
and Marnie Crouch, aye. We have a quorum, so we're done.
Okay. Otherwise, we'd be stuck here.